Welcome to our evening plenary of the Israel in Focus International Conference 2023. It's great to see you all looking gorgeous tonight. We have some wonderful guests and some serious star power joining us for this evening. So how are you all doing? How's the weekend been? Yeah? How's the food? Good? The program? Yeah? This past weekend, we've learned together, we've had fun together, we've networked together, we've got over our jet lag together somewhat, we've taken selfies together. It's been quite the weekend, so let's just see where everybody's at. You should be good at this by now. Where are our friends from Florida? What about the Northeast? Okay, the Midwest? What about the Northwest? Where are you at? Mid-Atlantic region? Yes. What about the Southeast? What about SoCal? Southwest? Tri-State? Where are our Christian friends tonight? And what about our friends from Canada? Okay. The United Kingdom? Where's everybody at from Brazil? The Netherlands, Holland. South Africa. Where are all my friends from Israel? And last but not least, you know what's coming. Australia. There we go. All right, New England. Can I ask everyone, please take your seats. We're going to begin our program right now. Come take your seats. Shh. All right. We have had a wonderful weekend, and our theme this evening, we're going to be learning more from some fantastic people. Our theme this evening is anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and current challenges. My friends, I want to tell you something. Before I jumped on the plane from Israel to get here, the last thing I did before that was to attend the funeral and represent Stand With Us at the funeral of Ilan Janelis, Zecher Livracha. Ilan was from West Hartford, Connecticut. He was a graduate of Columbia University. He was a former lone soldier in the IDF, now living in the Upper East Side. He was in Israel to attend a wedding. He was murdered by terrorists simply because he's a Jew. I stood at his funeral, listening to his family and friends eulogizing him, laughing at his idiosyncrasies, and sobbing at the loss of a kind, clever, and committed loved one. And I looked around at who was standing there with me. They were secular and religious. They were Sephardi and Ashkenazi. They were left and right wing. They were Jewish and not Jewish. Some of them support the judicial reform in Israel, some of them do not. What had happened was a text went out far and wide to say that Ilan had family in Israel, but limited family in Israel, and would people please attend the funeral? Thousands and thousands joined together to be there. Ilan is one of 14 Israeli victims of terrorism since 2023 began. Those victims include two sets of brothers, tragically. It is all too painful and tragic. But the glimmer of hope that I saw at Ilan's funeral was that in grief and in joy, we can act like brothers and sisters. We should be united, and together we will achieve so much more. And now let's take a look at what Stand With Us is doing, together, united, all around the world.
You feel the connection deeply. The history and the people inspire you. You yearn for peace, and want others to know the beauty of Israel. You want to inspire them to care as you do and to stand up for what is right. Do you take for granted that they know the whole story? Do they know how far we have come, where we've been, where we are going? Are they inspired by Israel? Do they understand never again? Too often, Jews, Israelis, and allies are attacked because of who we are.
We support the Antifada! We support the Antifada! Israel is a terrorist state! Israel is a terrorist state!
Because we want to see Israel live and thrive in peace. Our friends, our families, our communities, our students feel the hostility. Every day requires courage and strength.
You have blood on your hands! Not welcome on our campus!
We are told that we don't belong.
Let's get off our campus now! I've been this campus for 10 years! Get the off our campus now!
That an entire history, nation, and people don't matter.
Zionism must be destroyed. It must be gotten rid of. Every aspect of it.
You want to stand tall, to make a difference, to ensure that your peers, your friends, and your families understand the facts. To tell a story of resilience, justice, and hope. To help build a more just and peaceful world. That is what Stand With Us does. That is who Stand With Us is. We represent you when you can't be there, with offices on 6 continents. We represent you in high schools, where we reach over 100,000 students each year with the beauty of Israel and foster the next generation of Zionist leaders. We are your voice on campus, training students how to lead and reach over 150,000 of their peers each year in the face of intolerance and bigotry. We represent you when we reach 100 million people on Facebook during peak weeks. We educate for the future by sponsoring speaker tours and holding conferences around the world, training leaders and lifting communities. We are your hotline when anti-Semitism rises and civil rights are trampled on, with over 250 attorneys standing by for students, faculty, and community members. We represent your legacy when we partner with over 700 different organizations around the world and share our precious resources with groups who care as you do about Israel. We are working in your name when we use innovative teaching methods to inspire middle schoolers with the wonder of Israel. We represent you when it's time to push back against anti-Semitism, when it is time to teach, to tell the world about Israel, to stand up for what is right. And we have only just begun. Help us reach more people around the globe. Help us empower more of our peers, your peers, to be brave, to be confident, to fight smart, to win, and to always, always stand tall.
Now, none of you, what you just saw would have been possible without the incredible hard work of our next speaker. She's the daughter of Holocaust survivors, and since the inception of Stand With Us, she's been named by the Allgemeine as one of their top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life around the world. She's been named by the Forward as one of the 50 most influential Jews in America, and twice by the Jerusalem Post as one of the 50 most influential Jews in the world. Please welcome Stand With Us CEO and co-founder Roz Rothstein.
אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם.
How great is it to be together? It is amazing. Before I give you just a very few remarks tonight, I want to acknowledge a couple of people in the room. First of all, the co-founders of Stand With Us 21 years ago. Almost 21, almost 22, are right here in the room with us. Esther Renzer, please stand. Esther is the Presidente internationally and has been since day one of Stand With Us. And Jerry Rothstein, please stand up. Jerry is the COO of Stand With Us and works so hard every single day of the week. So a couple of other people are here. I just want to acknowledge that we have some incredible lay leaders here tonight. And I wanted just the light is not on, but I hope you could see them. Lana from the UK, please stand up. So she is the chair in the UK, and then Janice and Barbara, and who else do we have? Please, I can't even see you guys, but stand up for 1 second from Chicago. What? Thank you so much. So these are lay leaders. These are the partners that help us make things move forward. And of course, once again, I have introduced him before, but I want him to stand up. I'm sorry Rita's not here, but Steve Emerson. Steve and Rita making the Emerson Fellowship possible. And Steve, I'm going to say this on your behalf because I know you really want to say this to all of the high schoolers in the room. We expect you to keep your eyes on the Emerson Fellowship, and if you're any good, you might actually get in when you get into college. I know you're all going to be good. So you're all amazing. So thank you. Shh. You know, if you all remember, one of the questions that came actually from one of you, really, really good shout out for that question. I don't know who it was, but thank you, was how is it that you keep up your spirit every day with all of the challenges that we have? It's a very good question. How do you keep it up? And I have personally been asked that question a lot, so I liked it when it came up. And right away in my head, I was asking myself, what is it that keeps me up, able to do this work every single day? And I have to be honest, the frequency of the stories that are really disturbing, that are coming up, are higher and higher level and more frequent. So it's very disturbing, and I know you know that. I know you know that anti-Semitism is rising. We are so grateful for our non-Jewish friends, particularly those of you that are in the room tonight. Thank you. We are so grateful for those alliances and those partnerships. And hate is wrong. It was wrong then, and then can go way back, right? Centuries and even thousands of years. Hate was wrong then, and it's wrong now. And because it's wrong, that is the issue that propels me. I'm a daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. And just knowing that I personally grew up with no cousins, very limited, like a handful of cousins, and that I didn't really understand why. I didn't know. My parents and all the Holocaust survivors, we talked about this today in that session. It was really riveting, that session about the Holocaust and about resistance to the Holocaust. But what is so fascinating is that the Holocaust survivors really wanted to protect us. They wanted to protect us from what happened to them. So for at least 25 years post-Holocaust, they really didn't talk about it. It wasn't until Steven Spielberg started the Shoah testimonies that they started to come forward and tell their stories. And that was when all of us, including my brother who's here, Joe Shalmoni, stand up for a second, say hi. It was only then us, kids of survivors, began to understand the gravity of what happened to them. And I regret, if for anybody here who is a descendant of someone who lived through the Holocaust and survived, I want to remind you that this is the time, if you have anybody that's alive in your family, this is the time to ask your questions. Ask your questions. We are missing chunks of information. I regret so much that I didn't get all the different stories from my poor parents who tried to hide it from us. But if you can now, people are more comfortable speaking, and if you have that opportunity, make sure you get that information. But hatred and attacks against any minority group is wrong. You know it. We know it in this room. So imagine you're walking by a carload of a black family, and you see white supremacists attacking their cars, screaming at them, and calling them all kinds of names, and saying the worst of the worst that I don't even want to repeat here on this stage. How would you feel about that? How would you feel watching that? Would you move? Would you do something? Would you call the police? Would you do something? Would you be an upstander? And I would hope that for every single person in this room, the answer is, can I hear it a little bit louder? The answer is? Okay, that's right. Now I know that I would. I know that I wouldn't stand for it. Why is it politically appropriate to stand back from the hatred that we are hearing being spewed on college campuses and in communities against the Jewish people? Why? Why a politically inappropriate day of hate? Why would that be something that everybody wouldn't come out against? But I didn't hear too many voices. I got to be honest with you. A day of hate was declared by white supremacists, neo-Nazis, a week ago. And I didn't hear too many voices. I was really sad about that. We need to be more mindful when other people are suffering, but I wonder what this is, that people are just, hey, well, it's Jewish people. Okay, I mean, that's not okay. We need to have a response. Now, we talked about what the possible responses are, what the possible responses are to hatred. And you could stand back, you could stand down, you could maybe get a network. That's very important. Get a network together in your environment. Make sure you're not alone. We're here for you. But there is an answer to this, and it's really important. Sure, there are legal ways to deal with it. We're going to hear about that tonight. There are many ways to handle the situation, but we need to remain proud. We need to remain proud. The answer to hate has got to be that we remain strong, that we stand tall. So when you leave tomorrow, that's what I want you to take with you. I want you to take that in your heart and your mind, that the answer to this hatred is your strength, is your pride, is how we danced in the other room, is how you stand tall. Whether you're Jewish or you're a non-Jewish person that loves Israel, stand tall about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rose. You know, it's not just us that really respects everything our student and our high school leaders are doing for Israel. Also, the Israeli government does too, and it's my honor to welcome the Consul for Public Diplomacy of the Consulate here in Los Angeles of the State of Israel, Carmel Halevi.
Hi, Shavua Tov, Erev Tov. Hello, everyone. So happy to see you all. I just arrived 30 minutes ago, and I was so happy to see all of you here. On behalf of the State of Israel, I have to say that I'm so proud to see all of you here tonight. So thank you, Stand With Us, for this incredible seminar and for all the hard work that you're doing all year long in Educate for Israel and fighting anti-Semitism. It really is Avodat Kodesh, literally Avodat Kodesh. and to see, yep. And to see you here, the young generation, the next generation, I really feel that we are in good hands. So thank you for being here, for taking a move, for care. I just want to say that in a few days, as you all know, we're going to celebrate Purim. You all know the story of Purim: anti-Semitism, hated the Jews, tried to destroy us, wanted to kill us, and they didn't succeed. The anti-Semitism of the old times we're still facing today. I can assure you that no one will destroy us. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmel Halevi. Now, our next speaker is the founding director of the Stand With Us Center for Combating Anti-Semitism. She's a constitutional litigator with extensive experience assisting clients on an array of issues, including... We can do that. We like a bit of music. Including freedom of speech and religious liberties. For over a decade, she's been active in fighting anti-Semitism on campus, in local communities, in court, and at the United Nations. She believes deeply that we cannot stand silently by, whoever we are, when Jewish people are once again targeted, marginalized, demonized, and harmed. To talk about her work at the Center for Countering Anti-Semitism, please welcome our director, Carly Gamel.
ככה זה עובר לנו עדיין, אוחזים ידיים כל יום, את איתי אני איתה.
Thank everyone in this room for the incredible mikveh that you are performing with the work that you do. Wait, what?
We'll carry on with the lessons tomorrow. Go on,
What happened? Oh, you didn't bring your bath towels. Okay, I get it. He really has been trying to teach me Yiddish and Hebrew, though, and it's not going great. Maybe next time. I do hope, though, that you all are having a great time. For the students who are here, I hope that you are taking advantage of this time with your peers and that you really are soaking up the collective knowledge and the wisdom from the incredible speakers and presenters that you are privy to here at this conference. You are not going to get this anywhere else. And it's also my privilege to be here with you and to get to help host this session this evening. You're going to hear from a number of people tonight about their experiences with anti-Semitism in a number of different contexts. And I'll be honest with you, some of it's heavy stuff, but it's real. And we have to talk about what's happening. We have to talk openly about how anti-Semitism is impacting the Jewish community around the world. And while that may sound like bad news, I also have really good news. The people that you're going to hear from, they may have gone through some really difficult experiences, but that's not the end of the story. They also are actively working to combat the spread of anti-Semitism in some really, truly impressive ways. They are standing tall and proud in their Jewish identities. And I have even more good news. The Jewish community is not alone in this fight. That's right. There are strong allies, many of whom are in this room, like myself, like the rest of the Christians, the Hindus, many different groups who are standing with the Jewish community. And they are committed to standing with the community, condemning anti-Semitism for the hate that it is, and taking proactive steps to fight it. So yes, there is reason to be on alert, but there is also great reason to be encouraged and to be strengthened in your own Jewish identity and in your identity as an ally of the Jewish people. Well, let's start out by setting the stage in terms of what we're seeing around the globe. We know that anti-Semitism can take on many different forms. We often speak about anti-Semitism in more traditional, classic, or historic forms on the one hand, and then more contemporary forms on the other. But the truth is that even what we identify as those more classic and historic forms of anti-Semitism, they're still happening today. So here's what I want to do. I want to ask you all who are here. I want to talk about some examples of what that looks like. What do you think that these classic examples of anti-Semitism look like in your life, personally, that you've heard about, that you've experienced? You can stand up and speak loudly, or I think we might have some mics around, but I'm looking for you guys in the room to share a little bit about your experiences. What does this classic anti-Semitism look like? And I'm going to rely on people who can see, because there are lights in my eyes and I can't see raised hands. Anyone? Anyone at all? Just stand up and start talking. I'm not going to call on you because I can't see you. Come on. You guys you've been talking. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? What's that? I'm sorry? What campus? Oh, I'm sorry, what campus are you at? In Ottawa. Carleton in Ottawa. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who can think, right now I'm specifically looking for examples of more classic forms of anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about Israel in a minute. So classic, yep, go for it. Thank you. Thank you. And speaking of that specific situation, if you couldn't hear her, she was talking about on her campus that Yay is Right, the group came. That's a group that's been traveling to campuses around the country. In good news, this is a group that visited the University of Alabama a few weeks back, and you may think that we don't have a whole lot of help from administrations. This was actually an administration that issued a statement, a very strong statement condemning what these people stand for and making it very clear that it is not in alignment with the values of the University of Alabama. So that's something to be aware of, that this is happening, right? That with the understanding of what's happening in the culture and the anti-Semitic nature of it, it is happening, and it's because of these kinds of efforts, right? You guys are standing up and you're saying this is wrong and this is why it's wrong. I'll tell you a little bit more about what this classic anti-Semitism looks like. It looks like a Jewish college student who returned to her dorm room to find that her mezuzah had been ripped off and destroyed, and that a package of pork had been smeared on her doorway and left on the doorstep. Another student, this time in high school, posted a picture of himself and his friends on social media with the caption, "Me and the boys about to exterminate the Jews." At other schools, swastikas, messages glorifying Hitler, have been found in various locations across campus. And in cities around the world, members of a white supremacist group are gathering to verbally harass Jews with disgusting and hateful slurs. They're distributing defamatory leaflets blaming the Jews for COVID, accusing Jews collectively of wielding a malicious and manipulative power over major societal institutions. That's what anti-Semitism in its more classic forms looks like today. These are real stories, real situations that are happening. But now what about the more contemporary forms of anti-Semitism, right? You're no doubt aware that a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism today is focused not on the Jewish individual, but on the Jewish collective, the state of Israel. And while some of this Israel-related and Israel-focused anti-Semitism is really nothing more than a repackaging of these traditional anti-Semitic stereotypes and tropes, much of it is far more insidious, right? It strikes at the very existence of the world's only Jewish nation in the form of anti-Zionism. But you, or others more likely, might say, anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism, right? It's just political opposition to Israeli policies or practices, right? Wrong. But I'm going to ask for your help again. Can any of our students explain why? Why is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism? Right back here. I actually can see you. Nope, you turned around. Yep, you. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that? Right here.
We need a Jewish state because Jews have been persecuted for thousands of years. And if you're saying that Jews shouldn't have a Jewish state, you're saying that Jews don't deserve to be safe because we're not going to be safe if we're not protecting ourselves. So you're being anti-Semitic because you're saying that Jews don't deserve the right to feel safe like everybody else does.
Very true. Right here.
So, in itself, on campus, Jewish students are targeted about things that Israel does, and that in itself is anti-Semitic. So they're one of the same things, because how are we on campus responsible for things Israel has done in the past? And also, on campus, I was told to go back to where I came from, meaning Europe, even though half of my family is from Iraq. And like we've been indigenous to the Levant region in my family history. So it's like if we're not welcome in Israel, we're not welcome on campus, like where are we supposed to go?
Understand. Thank you. All right, one more. Anybody on this side of the room, right here?
I'm going to deviate a little bit and go with an anecdote instead that I think shows it really well. During the conflict about a year ago or so, a rally was held in support of Israel in downtown Montreal. And a large contingent of pro-Palestinian people came out and started throwing rocks. My brother was maced, actually, and many others that I knew had their cars pelted. A man was beaten up. Israeli flags were ripped. That wasn't the end of it. Police shut it down. But after that, a couple of teenagers decided to get into a car, filmed an Instagram video saying that we're going to go and show the Jews exactly what they're doing to Palestinians. They brandished knives and drove to the Jewish community, and the entire community went down on them. Those sorts of things happen with increased regularity nowadays. It's not the only time that's happened in Montreal, and for sure not the only time that happens in North America. And so for that exact reason is why the defense of the Palestinians or the attacking or hatred of Israel inevitably always directly leads to attacks on Jews.
Thank you. Wow. Again, and as he just said, he's exactly right. This is happening with more and more frequency and regularity. But so let's put all of this into a more concise explanation. This is something you can take with you, right? If someone asks you to explain how is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism, here's your answer, if you don't remember all of these examples. For most Jews around the world, Zionism represents their unbreakable bond and age-old desire to be free in the Jewish ancestral homeland of Israel. And this Zionism is an integral component of their Jewish identity. So rather than simply representing a political position, anti-Zionism is actually an attack against an aspect of Jewish identity, no less than attacking a Jewish person because he wears a kippah or because she keeps kosher. We have a word for that kind of identity-based attack. It's called discrimination. And we have a word for discrimination against Jews. It's anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. So you've shared what it looks like in some of your experiences, and I thank you for the courageous nature of what you're doing to respond to those things. Let me give you a few more examples. A student was deliberately excluded from attending a public meeting on campus because of his Zionist identity. Right? The leaders of the student group sat in the meeting actively debating whether or not to let this student join because he was a Zionist. Effectively, they imposed a litmus test. Check the Zionist part of your identity at the door or you're not allowed to come in. On another campus, an anti-Zionist professor hosted a lecturer who told a class full of students that Israel is an inherently malicious, racist, colonialist state, and then glorified terrorist forms of resistance against innocent Jews and Israelis. And then the professor turned her own venomous hatred of Israel into discriminatory treatment of her Jewish students. High school students harassed their Jewish peers on social media with messages demonizing Israel and delegitimizing its very right to exist. And as you just heard, individuals have driven around multiple cities throughout the world while waving Palestinian flags, shouting anti-Semitic slurs from their windows, and physically assaulting those that they identify not as Israelis, but as Jews. This is unvarnished bigotry and hate on full display. Yet while we may recognize those things as the lies, the distortions, the misinformation, and the hateful violence that they are, the more often that they are said and done, the more other people repeat them and even believe them. Which is why the educational and engagement efforts that we and you are involved in every single day are so crucial. Things like educating administrators, employers, elected officials, and other influencers about anti-Semitism, including the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. Using legal tools and strategies to hold people accountable for unlawful anti-Semitic discrimination, like our recent filing of a Title VI complaint with the Department of Education to remedy a hostile anti-Semitic environment at George Washington University. Or our important work with our allied partners, like the Together Against Anti-Semitism billboard campaign that we will be launching in just 2 days to stand with communities that are experiencing anti-Semitism to send the unified message that attacks against Jews and Jewish identity are unacceptable in our society. Thank you. As I said, these are serious situations. And throughout the evening, you're going to hear more about the history and the realities of anti-Semitism. But that's only the first part of the story. You're also going to hear the rest of the story. The reality that although anti-Semitism is growing stronger in some ways, so are we, and so can you. Stronger in your resolve and your ability to stand tall and proud in your Jewish identity, and if you are not Jewish, stronger in your resolve to stand against that which is wrong, hateful bigotry against Jews and Israel. I'd like now to invite a few guests to join me, and they're going to offer a little more of a personal perspective on some of these issues. So would you please help me welcome to the stage 2 of our incredible Emerson Fellows and 2 of our inspiring Leventhal High School interns.
And just as they take their seats, I want to ask everyone in the room, please raise your hand if you have ever personally experienced or someone you know has experienced anti-Semitism. Look around the room. You're not alone. Carly, over to you.
Thank you. All right, here's what I want you to do first. You're here for a reason, right? They need to know who you are. Where do you live? Where do you go to school? So let's start here.
Hi, everyone. I'm a Leventhal intern. I'm from right outside of Boston. I go to Marblehead High School. I'm currently a senior.
Hi, everyone. My name is Teresa. I'm a student at UCL in London, and I'm an Emerson Fellow, and I'm also welfare officer for our Friends of Israel Society.
Hello, my name is Gabe Silverstein. I'm a senior at Princeton High School in Princeton, New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Kafir. I'm a sophomore at UC Berkeley.
Thank you, guys. The first thing I want to ask is the hard part, right? Give them the bad news. We're going to start this way and come back. Tell us how you've experienced anti-Semitism.
Well, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Berkeley throughout everything that's happened in the past year. So we started off the year with some clubs at the law school saying that they did not want Zionist speakers and they weren't going to allow Zionist speakers to give any talks. And that blew up when an article came out saying that Berkeley had Jewish-free zones. I'd like to assure all of you that's not true. And so in our fight against that, it really felt like we were just kind of on the front lines and really like fighting against an anti-Semitism on a higher scale. And it really was us college students who are so young and so inexperienced fighting against something that's been around for so long. And then fast forward a little bit to probably the second biggest anti-Semitic event is that a couple of weeks ago we tried to pass the IRA definition of anti-Semitism in our student senate. And I want to thank Chloe and Liv first and anybody else who stayed on the Zoom the entire time. It turned out to be a Senate meeting that lasted until 3:30 in the morning when they decided that they will table it indefinitely and not pass it. Not a good thing. Not a good thing.
It's not the outcome we're looking for, but so let's stick with that for just a minute, and
Yeah. So my experience with anti-Semitism starts when I was in middle school. It made some big news. Maybe you've heard. In Princeton High School, there was a Nazi versus Jew beer pong tournament, which got a lot of publicity, and so that happened in middle school. And I didn't really have any resources at that point to sort of go about dealing with this. And then fast forward to high school, in May of 2021, a friend and I went downtown in Princeton to Heinz Plaza, and there was what was supposed to be a peaceful pro-Palestinian protest in the middle of town, the inoperative word in that statement being peaceful. As a friend and I stood maybe 40 yards away behind two police officers with a towel that I used blue tape to write Am Yisrael Chai on it, and then we were, unfortunately, we were rushed by a group of members of the protest called Nazis. They were threatening to hurt us, to push us, and thankfully the police officers were there to step in. They said, "We appreciate what you guys are doing here, but I think it's time to go," and I think they were right as well.
So when I was asked to participate in this panel, I was thinking about which experience I should talk about, because I definitely do not have a shortage of those. But I decided to talk about a larger problem that I see, at least at British universities, where we have, as Zionist students, we face a battle from two fronts. So basically, we have to fight the students that do not agree with our beliefs, but at the same time, we have to fight systemic biases from the administration of universities. And this was very prevalent in my last 2 years of university, when we had for example, the student union not do anything about a pledge that was proposed by the Students for Justice in Palestine Society and was distributed to all candidates for the student union positions. And these candidates were asked to sign this pledge, which basically said they do not endorse the state of Israel and anything it does. And they were threatening to then basically distribute a list of those candidates that have signed this pledge and those who haven't, implying that there would be an in-group and an out-group, and basically pushing a divide between people.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So when I got asked to do this panel, I thought long and hard about what I wanted to say, but I think I want to start off by saying that I did a semester abroad at the Alexander Muss High School in Israel. And since that moment, I fell in love with Israel, and it kind of became my full-time, all-life passion just to support Israel and support the Jewish people. And since that experience, I have gained multiple leadership roles in my community, including being a co-chair of the Teen Anti-Semitism Task Force of the Lapin Foundation, which is founded on the East Coast. And I think I have experienced anti-Semitism in my school. I'm very lucky to have a prevalent Jewish community. But because of that, I think it's empowered me to stand up and fight for the people who don't necessarily have that strong Jewish community. And just throughout the past few years, and even knowing the other interns since August, I think it's been a great opportunity to kind of rack our brains together and get like the endless help from StandWithUs to really empower one another and use our resources for good.
Great. Well, you just preempted my next question, so we'll go back the other direction and really quickly, because we could be up here all night, honestly, which is, both bad and good. So just in maybe 30 seconds or so, if each of you can just share, what is it then that you're doing to push back, right, to fight this anti-Semitism, and to whatever extent StandWithUs has been a part of that and played a role?
So in my fight against anti-Semitism, I think a lot of it has been, as I said before, like empowerment. Through StandWithUs, I've made some great community connections, and as incidents occur, as for example, a sports team at my school, when they went into playoffs, did like funny hairstyles, and someone did a yarmulke. Their friends proceeded to follow them around and point and call them Jew, and since that moment, it's really been on my mind of we can't just let this ignorance slide, and the resources that StandWithUs has really helped me to educate those students at my school who may not have had access to that education before.
Amazing.
So for me, the two main things that I have done during my year as an Emerson Fellow was empowering speakers that I think don't have that big of a platform, or maybe people don't know about them enough. So I decided to highlight people who I think are actually the most important in this whole issue, that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That is what comes to people's minds a lot of the times when you just mention Israel. And that is the Palestinians and the Israeli Arabs on the ground. So we have organized, thanks to StandWithUs, I was able to invite Bassem Eid and Yosef Haddad to our campus at UCL. And I knew that I was making a difference because of the backlash that I faced for both of these events. For the first event, Bassem Eid, I actually was facing problems from the administrative side. We had to move the venue in the very last minute, and in the end it did work out, but it very well did not have to. And in the second event, we actually had a huge protest. I think over maybe 200 protesters came, and there was only, I think, maybe 40 of us at the event. But ultimately, we held these events and we empowered these people, and we are trying to show that, you know, as much as it is important for us as Emerson Fellows and Jews to speak on these issues, there's also other people that are concerned in these issues and should have this platform, and they should not be overlooked.
Incredible. Thank you for doing that.
So my story fighting anti-Semitism starts actually 3 weeks after the protest that I mentioned earlier, where my local Federation chapter hosted a rally against hate in the same place. And I spoke about my experiences with anti-Semitism, and that sort of started my path in this sort of direction. And then I sort of decided in high school that I would try to be the resource and the ally that I didn't have when I was in middle school and when I was a freshman and when I was figuring out my Jewish identity. And so through programs and the wonderful resources from StandWithUs and my regional manager and my tri-state region, yeah, we really, the resources are just incredible. And I was able to reach the youth in my community and show them that there are people here that can help them. And I think this room right here is just an amazing example of the network that we have and how the Jewish community can come together and be there for people, even when you don't think that they are, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so my story of how we bounced back really came from my pro-Israel club on campus, Tikva. And so with everything that happened, I'm so proud to say that we have such a strong Jewish community and such a strong Jewish connection between all of us in our religion and our love for Israel, of course. And so we brought speakers from all over the place. We brought Charlotte, so thank you to StandWithUs for helping us bring Charlotte. And then we brought so many others. We brought Noah Tishby, Rudy Rochman, everyone from all over came to speak, and it really showed us that we have allies all over the world. And sometimes that's really the most important thing to remember, is that no matter what happens, we have an amazing, amazing group of people sitting right in front of us. Shout out to my West Coast region. And so that's my goal for the future, is just to continue to bring people and continue to show that light and show everybody that we do have a community behind us and we can stand strong together.
Wow. There's really nothing that I can add to that, so I'm just going to say thank you to you guys and to all of you, because they're exactly right. This is just a representation of the rest of you who are in the room and the work that you are doing together in your various communities. And so again, thank you to all of you, and thank you guys so much for being here.
As a teenager, I became involved in pro-Israel activism.
Our shared collective history of over 3,000 years and 1 billion people worldwide.
That's a fundamental part of me, not fundamental, I'm not super religious by any means, but I am Jewish and I'm proud to be Jewish and I'm proud to have an Israeli family.
This moment has pushed me to be more vocally Jewish and letting other people out there know that, hey, it's okay to be Jewish and be proud, and we're not going anywhere.
That's a trailer for one of our special guests coming up soon. Look out for that. Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who is a prominent journalist with the Jerusalem Post. She's the diplomatic correspondent. She reports on Israel from a whole different number of facets. She's been our guest throughout the weekend. And she used to be a StandWithUs Israel fellow, no less. Please welcome the wonderful Lahav Harkov.
ממה את מפחדת? אין מה לחשוב כשהוא אומר אין זמן יפה יותר.
Good evening, everyone. In 1975, Betty Friedan, the mother of second wave feminism and the author of The Feminine Mystique, was part of an American delegation to the UN's International Women's Year World Conference in Mexico City. She attended in hopes of helping to advance women's rights around the world after she had had such an impact in the United States. But instead, developing countries and representatives of communist Russia and the Soviet Union led a resolution to condemn imperialism, neocolonialism, racism, apartheid, and Zionism. Notably, they did not condemn sexism. Their Declaration on the Equality of Women became one of the first international documents to label Zionism as racism. Friedan and others from the free world saw that this was anti-Semitism and they tried to block it. At the time, Friedan called this the use of feminism itself as an anti-Semitic political tool. Friedan, who was Jewish up until that point, did not have a strong Jewish identity. She didn't talk a lot about being Jewish. She didn't have a lot to do with pro-Israel activism. But from that point on, she actually became very dedicated to the Zionist cause and was a prominent voice against the Zionism is Racism Declaration at the United Nations. Now, Friedan's experience might be familiar to some of you, and it's not something that was limited to the 1970s or to the age when the Soviet Union was still around. In 2015, the National Women's Studies Association, the largest feminist academic organization in North America, decided to join the BDS movement, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement against Israel. This is their motion. In the spirit of this intersectional perspective, we cannot overlook the injustice and violence, including sexual and gender-based violence, perpetrated against Palestinians and other Arabs in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, within Israel, and on the Golan Heights, as well as the colonial displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians during the 1948 Nakba, Nakba being an Arabic term meaning the catastrophe of Israel's establishment. What does the Nakba have to do with feminism? A popular definition of feminism these days, because it was quoted in a Beyonce song, was written by Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She said, "Feminism is the person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes." What does that have to do with Israel's establishment in 1948? Even stranger than inserting Israel into, a feminist academic society statement is the fact that Israel has the most advanced women's rights in the Middle East and is pretty progressive even by Western standards. There are certain things that feminists in the United States are trying to advance that have been, a fact in Israel for decades. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. This is something that Friedan learned the hard way at that conference in 1975, and all of you, I think, have learned and known in recent years. Israel is a fact. It's been around for 75 years, and wanting to eliminate the one Jewish state and put millions of Jews in harm's way is anti-Semitic. But the buzzwords that are being used by certain left-wing or quote-unquote woke political movements are being weaponized against Israel and in turn against Jews. This is an issue on the right as well, although they use different buzzwords. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the sources, the historical roots and sources of some of these ideas that are being advanced, specifically in those political movements. The feminist movement is just an example of it. We see it in other cases, in LGBTQ plus movements, in anti-racist movements, etc. First of all, we have this idea of intersectionality, which was mentioned in the academics sort of motion that I had mentioned earlier. Now, the idea of intersectionality makes sense. It says that if you're a person with different elements to your identity and different sort of marginalized identities, those different elements sort of come together and compound that marginalization, and that different groups, different identity groups should work together to fight that marginalization. That sounds like a useful tool, and it makes sense in a lot of cases. But one of the downsides of that is that it can often glorify victimhood. The bigger of a victim you are, the greater a voice you are thought to have, the greater legitimacy you have to speak up. Now, Jews were once the biggest victims in the world, but at least in the US, we've been able to assert ourselves and to be a sort of model immigrant group, to the point that I think very few of us consider ourselves to be immigrants, except for those who actually are, but it's, you know, Jews are very much seen as part of the American scene. And so since we pulled ourselves out of victimhood, we're not seen as part of that, you know, the group, part of the people who have the right to be in this intersectional battle, unless it's from some other kind of identity. Another buzzword in left-wing anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic circles is, of course, anti-imperialism, which translates to being anti-Western. When being a victim is the peak of righteousness, then the West is viewed as inherently moral. They side with the countries that can, in many cases justifiably, complain that the West ruined them. Israel, on the other hand, is an ally of the West and has been basically since its inception. And so the unique story of indigenous Jewish revival in our homeland can be packaged as imperialism or colonialism or even white supremacy and sold to people who don't know our real story. Now, these messages all have their roots in the anti-Jewish propaganda of the Soviet Union. In the early decades of the Soviet Union, the government wanted to show that they were accepting of all the different nationalities in their massive, massive country. So instead of saying that they were anti-Semitic, they said they were anti-Zionists. They said that Zionism is a problem because they wanted the workers of the whole world to be united, and that nationalism, that uniqueness, is the problem. And they recruited Jews to do their dirty work for them. They had a group called the Yevsektia, you have to forgive my pronunciation, but it was Jews who would rat out other Jews who were continuing to have a Jewish identity and wanted to have a connection to Israel. Today, I think you can think of groups that do the same thing. There are 9 out of 10 Jews in the UK and in the US, polls show, support Israel in some way. But these Jews who don't support Israel are rolled out as tokens to undermine and attack the Jews who reflect the majority view. In any case, it's not just the use of anti-Israel Jews as tokens that these current movements have in common with the Soviet Union. It's also these tropes that they use. Soviet anti-Zionist campaigns produced hundreds of books and thousands of articles against Israel and Zionism with all sorts of anti-Jewish implications, and they published them in 80 foreign languages and distributed them throughout the West and the developing world. They took classic anti-Semitic tropes and comparisons and just said Zionist instead. They just replaced the word. It wasn't very subtle. A big one was that they liked to compare Jews to Nazis. It should surprise no one that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who wrote his dissertation essentially denying the Holocaust and blaming Zionists for the Holocaust, got his doctorate at the Soviet Patrice Lumumba University. Another common trope used in the Soviet Union was accusing the Jews of using their sort of status as the chosen people to oppress others. And this is something that you see today in social media and in other places when people want to attack Jews and Israel. Soviet propaganda, they were using Nazi language of the Nazis calling themselves the master race and then changing it to say that this is how Jews are behaving. And so even though the Soviets didn't want to say they were against Jews, they took tropes found in the protocols of the elders of Zionist and classic Christian anti-Semitism. They essentially took the blood libel and turned it into Zionists harming children. And this is something we see to this day, that the modern day blood libel is saying that Israel is targeting children for harm. The classic anti-Semitic idea that Jews have control of the financial systems, the banks, this is something that we see Zionists being accused of. As Representative Ilhan Omar famously said, it's all about the Benjamins. The Soviet Union killed countless Jews using these kinds of excuses through the decades. There were purges, there's the famous doctor's plot, they sent prisoners of Zion to Siberia to rot. And the contemporary users of these tropes and themes need to take responsibility. We also see what's called horseshoe theory, where the extremes on each side, the left and the right, will repeat the same messages. So, former KKK Grand Wizard David Duke was very excited to see Ilhan Omar say that, all about the Benjamins and other things that she says about supporters of Israel. And in the UK, Holocaust denier David Irving admires the supposed anti-racist Jeremy Corbyn. People who are perpetuating these tropes need to understand that they lead to hate crimes against Jews. They're mainstreaming anti-Semitism into polite society by using the fig leaf of anti-Zionism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lahav Harkov. I want to just give a quick shout out to our Hindu friends that are here this evening from Hindu Yava. Welcome. And on that note, our next speaker is the co-founder of the Hindu American Foundation. It's an educational and advocacy organization that works with educators, journalists, and policymakers to champion issues of Hindu concern to Hindu Americans, including defending civil and human rights and protecting all living beings. It's a nonpartisan, nonprofit charity, and the head of it has strong ties in the Jewish community. He and North California-based Hindus and Jews co-founded Democracies Against Terror to highlight the challenges that Israel, India, and the United States all face together. He's been crucial in bringing Hindu Americans and Jewish Americans together, and he's been an advocate to stand against anti-Semitism, as we must be advocates to stand against Hindu phobia. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Mihir Meghani.
Shalom. I'm really excited to be here. Every time I meet a Jewish audience, I feel like there's so much to say and so much to share. And I know I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to get through a lot of this. And I hope we can inspire some of you, and I hope we can work more together. What I'd like to tell you is a few things, the most important things you need to know. I'm a Hindu American. I'm an Indian American, second generation. I grew up in Southfield, Michigan. If any of you are from Southeast Michigan, went to University of Michigan or Wayne State, raise your hands. Awesome, great. And most of my classmates were Jewish. But separate from the 10 minutes I'm going to talk here, the things I want you to know are, I stand against anti-Semitism. I stand with the state of Israel. Thanks. Okay. I stand with the state of Israel for its right to exist and do what its citizens, who are people from all backgrounds, religions, cultures, and ethnicities, want to do, because it's a democratic country. I also stand with the Jewish civilization, which is all of us, Jews around the world, and the state of Israel as well. And I stand with all of you as a proud donor to stand with us. Okay. Before I get into the main things I want to talk about, I do want to tell you, and I think most of you know this, but from the perspective of a Hindu American, Stand With Us is doing incredible work. I met Ross today, and I can see how this group has really become a very nimble, powerful, very creative organization. Ross has empowered a team led by Peggy Shapiro, who many of you know, and also involves Carly, Max, I think Avi, Asif aren't here, but Leora's here. Where's Leora? I think you all know Leora, right? Yeah. Leora, Jordan, and many others, and we've really worked well together. Now, I'm supposed to advance a slide here. Let's see if I can do that. Some of the programs we worked on are Shine a Light, anti-Semitism, and Hindu phobia. These are just some of the slides. I didn't want to show a lot of slides because I'm sure you're bored of a lot of slides and speakers, but there's Peggy, who's not here, and there's one of the Emerson Fellows. Is she here? Oh, yes, I hear yes. Okay, so this is a program we did together on anti-Semitism and Hindu phobia, and there's Carly and another person from the Hindu American Foundation on the interfaith response. I know this, it may not appear well, but there was interfaith response to anti-Semitism and Hindu phobia. So those were some of the programs that we've done together. I'm also proud that our partners, I think were introduced earlier, from The largest Hindu college and high school student organizations are here, Amrita Huday and Vivek Malampati. I can't see here, so if you don't know them, please meet with them. Raise your hands if you're still here. Okay, great. So, what I'd like to tell you now is a little bit more serious. You've had a lot of serious talk, but from someone who comes from a community that's been around as long as the Jewish community, a community of 1 billion people worldwide, what we see when we look at the struggle of the Jewish people is that we are both two very, very ancient civilizations, two very, very ancient people. We're ancient, but we're also modern. We've withstood time. If you all know history, countless civilizations came and went, and they're but footnotes in textbooks of history. There was the Holocaust. We survived it. There were genocides. They're still going on. We're going to survive those. But while others disappeared, and many other civilizations were forcefully evicted from their ancestral homes, we haven't been. We have Israel and we have India. Our civilizations are both religious and spiritual. They're modern and traditional. They're proud and pluralistic. They're confident yet open. Our civilization's political manifestations are now manifested by the states of Israel for Jews and India for many Hindus and many of the other indigenous religions of India, such as Sikhism, Jainism, and Buddhism. Both nations got independence from the British, as you know, in 1947 and 1948. Both of our nations immediately faced hostile neighbors. For Israel, of course, you all know, it is Arab countries, and for India, it was the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And both of us still face terror by many different groups, including many of the radical Islamist groups. But India and Israel are still the only constant democracies that have not gone through dictatorships, communist regimes from the 1940s through today, when you look across North Africa all the way through South and Southeast Asia. And that's something we have to be proud about. A few more similarities. We're both facing anti-Semitism. We're facing very similar issues in the Hindu community. We haven't quite given a term to it, so I'll use the term Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu hate. Our religions are often distorted. We're both called inferior. We're both called often devil worshippers. There are claims made that we're dishonest, privileged, and greedy. I don't know how we can be called privileged when most of our ancestors came with very little money, and many of you had relatives who came as refugees. We're charged with dual loyalty. That's not a standard often applied to people from other communities. We're accused of global domination, and as we've heard from speakers earlier, we're attacked both from the right and the left. Our challenges today include, as many of you all know, you're all students. It's been 30 years since I was a student, but I feel like many of the challenges haven't changed yet. We're asked to denounce our religion, our civilization, and the countries that represent our civilizational aspirations. Our festivals and observances are disrupted, and there is a move, and it's happened already in many, many countries, to eliminate our people and other indigenous people from the regions where we've thrived for thousands of years. Those people include Christians, Yazidis, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, not just Hindus and Jews. We've been eliminated from many of these countries, and you know what parts of the world we're talking about. Our history's been distorted. There are Holocaust deniers, and there are also deniers of the genocide that Hindus have faced in countries like Bangladesh and many other genocides if we go back 1,300 years. And what really hurts is we still face biased media coverage. How many times is it that I get an email from Peggy saying, this terrorist incident happened, but it doesn't pop up on my feed of major American newspapers. They either don't report it, or when they do, it's biased. So we face this, we face many, many common challenges. And of course, there's real violence against both communities. I think I went too far, but that's okay. Friends, I want to make a call to action because there's a lot that we need to do together. We need to fight anti-Semitism and anti-Hindu hate together. You need to know that you have 1 billion friends in the Hindu American community. And I'm not going to say every Hindu is going to be a friend, but there's 1 billion people who understand where you are coming from, where the civilization's coming from, and why you need a state of Israel. We are the most educated, affluent, and hardworking community in this country. We are small minorities here and in most places where we live. Hindus and Jews have also been friends for thousands of years. Many of you, if you're interested in the history of Jews in India, read books by Professor Nathan Katz from Florida International University. He's written extensively about how many Jews from different parts of the world, Sephardic Jews, did come to India. There's never been an incident of anti-Semitism in India. We're not one, according to the Israeli embassy. And Jews have never persecuted Hindus. So to continue our civilizations, our countries, our religions, we're going to have to work together. Remember, we're 1 billion people together. So our call to action, what have the Hindu American Foundation and Stand With Us done together? We found commonality. We found a shared vision, and we've identified many of our common enemies. The groups that you're facing on campus that are working against you, many of them are funded and work together with many of the same organizations that are fighting Hindu Yuva, the student group on campus. Many of the organizations that you're fighting together in city halls, groups that are opposing the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, groups like CARE, they're the groups that are fighting us as well on the kind of issues that we have. So what have we done together? The Jewish community in Chicago helped us defeat a CARE effort to denounce India in Chicago City Council. Recently in Georgia, Stand With Us led a move to pass IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism through the Georgia legislature. Hindu groups wrote 5 letters of support to the Georgia legislature to counter CARE that said CARE was saying they represent Hindus and they don't want the IHRA definition to pass. We said, that's not going to go happen. We're hoping this does pass through. We've worked together to face discriminatory laws such as caste laws that are being passed. We've expanded our network of people who need to know that if one of our civilizations is attacked, we're going to stand up for each other. And we've had 5 events together, HAF, the Hindu American Foundation, and Stand With Us, each attended by hundreds of people and then viewed on the Stand With Us TV website and on Hindu American Foundation's YouTube channel by tens of thousands of people subsequently. I ask all of you to think about activism, and I think my time's almost up. If I can take another minute, would that be all right? I've been an activist since I was 9 years old. My activism started in the Hindu American community, and I feel for many of you who are going through a tough time on campus. I'm glad you have a group like Stand With Us, because when I was growing up in America, there was no Hindu organization or pro-India group that could support me. It's hard, it's lonely, but it's very challenging, fun, and rewarding. Give it all you can. Give a few extra hours a week. If you can also ask your parents, tell them to contribute more money to Stand With Us. And for many of the people here who are contributing, I ask you to think about contributing double your donation. That's a standard pitch, by the way, I give at the Hindu American Foundation galas, but I hope at least somebody comes through. The most important thing we can do in our lives is to honor our ancestors. The people who died in the Holocaust, going back to prior years, the people who died when all the anti-Semitism happened 2,000 years prior, the people who died in genocides of Jewish people, the people who have faced anti-Semitism. We need to honor them. You can honor them by continuing to fight for the Jewish state of Israel, to fight for everything you believe in. That's what I'm doing for Hindus and for India. What they went through was so that you could live proudly being Jewish, so that you could practice your religion without fear and hate. And the commitment that you make is not just for Jewish people, it's for the whole world, because there's a lot that Jews have contributed and will continue to contribute to the world. I am glad to be here. I'm honored. I hope that we can continue to work together and look forward to talking to you more. I'm proud of everything you're doing on campus. Studying and coming here and being here is incredibly important. I now clap in honor of all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Magani, for your wonderful words and for your allyship. And we are stronger together. And there's so many ways to educate. We're blessed to have in the room with us Nancy and Gordon Mullen, who take Stand With Us materials to farmers markets all over and promote Israel. So thank you for doing that so much. And there's yes. And of course, Hollywood has been on our radar very recently when we comes to the topic of anti-Semitism. And another person you should know in the room with us right now is the founder of Creative Community for Peace, which helps fight back against boycotts against Israel and bolster artists when they come to Israel and help them to support Israel. That's David Renzer. He's over here. Thank you, David. And we've had so many stars on stage already, and as we get towards the conclusion of the program, here's a star from Hollywood. He's a multi-platform creator and a performer whose unique career spans many facets of the entertainment industry. As an actor, he's appeared in projects such as Broadway smash hit Wicked, Aaron Sorkin's Being the Ricardos, and TV comedy favorites The Office and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Most recently, he can be seen as the hilarious host in Netflix's new Darren Star series Uncoupled and Hulu's new Jewish holiday favorite, Menorah in the Middle. Aside from many other projects, he's an accomplished musician, composer, singer, and an award-winning vocal arranger, and he's performed in signature solo concerts all over the country. Off-screen, he's highly engaged in the community through a number of different organizations and sits on multiple boards across various nonprofits. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Jonah Platt.
Thank you. Right on. Thank you guys for having me. It's really awesome to be here with so many impressive young people doing such great work. So I'm really psyched to be here. I know it's getting late in the night. Are you all still with me? Yeah? Okay, great. So I have done a lot of different things throughout my career in the entertainment industry, and so I have some opinions about what I'm here to talk to you about tonight, which is anti-Semitism in Hollywood. Also, from now on, you're going to hear me call it anti-Jewish hate or anti-Jewish sentiment. Personally, I find the term anti-Semitism can be used to be more opaque or occlude or soften what we're really trying to talk about. But that's just me. So you've heard at length already tonight about acts of anti-Semitism and Jewish hate that many of you have experienced and are on the rise in this country. Beliefs in anti-Jewish tropes and conspiracy theories have nearly doubled in the past 4 years. Just last week, a group of neo-Nazis harassed patrons in front of a Broadway theater where a group of performers, including my younger brother, were about to put on a musical that itself deals with anti-Jewish hate. This anti-Jewish fervor feels very pervasive and present in a way that I have never experienced before in my lifetime. But I'm not here to talk to you tonight about these overt acts of hatred. Thankfully, when it comes to the Hollywood entertainment industry, this in-your-face hate is not quite the issue. It's not like ABC is about to release a show called Those Pesky Yids that we have to worry about. What I want to talk to you about are the more covert ways that anti-Jewish sentiment, both intentionally and often unintentionally, is seeping into the industry. Since the George Floyd wake-up call of 2020, Hollywood has acted with great urgency, both for moral and commercial reasons, let's be real, to become as inclusive as possible. And on the whole, it has been amazing and has brought many long overdue changes to an industry that desperately has needed them. But why, in this great movement to empower, to platform, to spotlight minorities, do Jews not seem to count the same as every other group? Why are Jews so narrowly represented on screen and in such a narrow range of stories when other minority groups are being encouraged and applauded for taking up as much space as they possibly can? Why, of all the minorities that have experienced discrimination and hate and violence, are Jews the only ones that have to get their oppression credentials checked at the door? When we see Jews on screen, it's, not always awesome. Now, there are some exceptions, such as my character Ben in the now classic 2022 Hulu holiday film Menorah in the Middle, in which I played a photographer who was a pretty regular small-town dude who was a nice guy who just happened to have gone to Jewish summer camp and celebrates Hanukkah. But usually, we get some iteration of Kyle Broflovsky's parents from South Park. We get nebbishy, New York accents, Yiddish words as punchlines, overbearing mothers, weak fathers, who are usually doctors, lawyers, deli owners, or finance guys. Now, of course, there are some exceptions to those things as well. You've got Munich with Daniel Craig, Inglourious Basterds with Brad Pitt, Hunters with Al Pacino, the new Golda Meir movie with Helen Mirren. These are all stories where Jews are strong heroes that only work because we all know none of those movie stars are actually Jewish, because if they were, it would make us uncomfortable to see them be so powerful. So here comes my thesis. To me, those most responsible for the way Jews are represented on screen or not is actually the Jews of Hollywood themselves. Now, to be clear, I'm not blaming Jews for anti-Jewish hate. No group is ever at fault for the prejudice, hatred levied against them. But I believe that we are the standard bearers of our own representation. We are the gatekeepers. And sadly, I have come to recognize a lack of ownership and intentionality when it comes to Jewish identity among many Jews working in Hollywood today. Here's a little stat for you. 50% of Jews in LA identify as not affiliated. And nationally, it's especially stark among Gen Zers, 40% of whom identify as unaffiliated. So even if there are a large amount of Jews working in Hollywood, it stands to reason that many of them are not practicing or unaffiliated or disconnected, or what you'll hear described as being only culturally Jewish. And these are the people writing Jewish stories, deciding what on-screen Jews look like and sound like, and which stories are being told. It would be like if we were making a movie about NASA, and we go, should we get an astronaut to consult on this? Oh no, how about we get this guy who went to space camp once? That would be great. Let's take a second. So, do you know that 75% of people around the world have never even met a Jew? That's billions of people, most of planet Earth. And our main Jewish spokespeople to the public are actors and writers and producers who think being Jewish means you like bagels and you go to temple one time a year and you have digestive issues and you drive a nice car. To me, being culturally Jewish is a lot more than that. It means singing Hebrew songs, watching my son bake hamantashen with his grandma, visiting Israel, going to Jewish summer camp. Yes. Yeah. And so, what I'm trying to say is that Jews seem to be unique in that they are kind of the only minority of which you can be a member, and then from which you can choose to essentially opt out of participating. How does this work? Well, most people erroneously think that Judaism is just a religion. Wrong. Saying Judaism is just a religion would be like saying a burrito is just a sandwich. It's like, yeah, that technically does fulfill just those basic things, but you're missing what it's really all about here. Jews are a people, an ethnicity tied to religion, an ethno-religion, if you will, descended from a single tribe, well, 12 tribes, but you know what I'm saying. Until 150 years ago, there was no religion distinct from the people. There was no secular Jew or conservative or reform. A Jew was a Jew. And whether you're a Berber from Morocco or a Sephardi from Spain, we all share common Jewish DNA. Quick tangent, speaking of DNA, I did a DNA test myself. Shout out Ancestry.com, the old man's 23andMe. And, I was really excited to learn about my history, the interesting mix of peoples and cultures I would have in my blood. So I got my results, 99% Ashkenazi Jewish. And not even super interesting parts of Europe. It was just like Russia and Latvia. But a few weeks later, I got an email saying that there had been an update. I was really psyched. I was like, all right, what do we got? 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Didn't say American, didn't say white, didn't say European, said Jewish. Second tangent. Jews are not white, okay? Now, it's not that straightforward. Obviously, do some American Jews have white skin? Of course, you're looking at one. And in fact, a vast majority of us do. And have some, maybe even many or most, benefited from the privileges or lack of barriers associated with being an American with white skin in this country, without a doubt. And yet, Jews as a people are not white. Most obviously, some Jews are literally not white. Black Jews are not white. An Iranian Jew, a Mexican Jew, a Chinese Jew. These people are not white. And the folks who think Jew equals white are erasing tens of thousands of people from their own identity with a single thought. Moreover, let's say it's 1939 and I meet a Mr. Hitler. He would definitely not consider me white. He would tell me that as a Jew, I was of a different, lesser race than the white race, and that I was a scourge upon the earth, and that I and all of my family need to leave the country, except no other country on earth would want to take us because, again, we're not white, we're Jews, so we'd have to go back to Germany and be murdered instead. Or forget 1939, let's say it's 1970, and you're my dad growing up in Baltimore, and you walk by the Baltimore Country Club, and the sign says, no Jews, no blacks, no dogs. Why? Jews are not white. Or forget 1970, maybe it's today, and we go to a white supremacist rally, or a KKK BBQ, or we approach the neo-Nazis who are shouting outside my brother's show. If they knew I was a Jew, they'd want me dead, because to them, the protectors of the white race, I am not white. I'm a Jew. So even though I know on screen what you see is a white guy, which I am, also technically I'm kind of not. It's complicated, I know. But we have to at least be brave enough to own our own identity enough to have these conversations. End of white Jewish tangent. So have any of you guys seen the recent Netflix film, You People? Yes. A couple of you. So this was a tricky one for me because I thought the movie was really funny. And as Jews, we are so starved for any kind of contemporary representation on screen that anytime we see Jews on screen, we're like, ooh, Jew stuff, that's awesome. And look, Jewish stars telling Jewish stories on screen definitely has intrinsic value, for sure. And I thought that at times they did a really good job of exploring some of the tricky conversations happening right now between the Jewish and black communities, which I could give a whole nother talk about. But also in many ways, the movie did Jews a great disservice, as many mainstream stories sadly do. The main character of the movie, who is Jewish, shows up for high holiday services, not knowing any of the words, clearly not wanting to be there, and he'd forgotten his kippah, which also plot hole. He said he left it in the car, but obviously every congregation has a basket of poorly stitched one-ply black kippahs he could have grabbed on the way in. We all know this. Is this the way that we want to define Jew to the world? As a people who are essentially disinterested and disassociated from their own identity? And also they called it Yom Kippur, which always bothers me because obviously the word is Yom. We're not saying Yom, it's the Day of Atonement, it's not the Ocean of Atonement. Later in the movie, this Jewish character is alone with his black fiance's black father, while the fiance is alone with his Jewish mother. They're really funny scenes. I was cracking up. It's very funny. But on one side, you've got the Jew proving to the black dad that he's cool because he likes hip-hop and he's good at basketball and can hang with the black guys, which I did appreciate because a lot of Jews do have a disproportionate love and talent for basketball, so that was cool to see. But on the flip side, rather than show a parallel scene with the black fiancé listening to Jewish music or trying to prove that she could hang with the mom's Jewish crowd, it was still the Jew having to prove that she was cool to the black person by listening to her music. And then the mother took her to a spa, as if the Jewish equivalent of black guys playing basketball is a fancy spa for rich people. It's a very stark example of a specific writer, who, by the way, changed his name to sound less Jewish, having his own negative association that now for millions of people is how they define the Jewish experience. Let me drop a couple more stats on you. A 2020 survey found that 63% of Gen Zers and millennials did not know that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, and 11% thought Jews were responsible for the Holocaust. Last year, the ADL counted the highest number of anti-Jewish incidents in all the years they've been collecting the data, while an AJC study found that while 82% of Jews feel anti-Semitism has increased over the past 5 years, less than half the general population feels the same way. Last two stats, and then I'll get to my point. 2018 survey found that somewhere between 20 and 30% of American Jews either are just getting by or can't make ends meet, and 60% of US-based Holocaust survivors live on less than $23,000 a year. Meanwhile, you've got these Hollywood folks, Jewish and not Jewish, who are doing well in their jobs and seeing only these representations of basically affluent white Jews on TV, and they're thinking the Jews aren't a marginalized minority, they're doing great. And by the way, anytime you make a capital letter group of people declaration like that, you're about to say something that's at best untrue and at worst wildly offensive. And look, even if some or even most Jews are doing well for themselves in this country, does that mean that as a people we don't know suffering or our stories are less deserving of being authentically told? Asian Americans are less likely to be in poverty and significantly more likely to have a college education than the general American population. Does anyone ever question whether or not they deserve representative storytelling? Of course not. Only the Jews have their successes used against them and their challenges erased. Then there's the whole Israel thing, which I literally don't have time for, so I'm not going to get into it tonight. It's a whole other conversation, but it's a big piece. Some Hollywood Jews are just disinterested in centering Jewish characters on screen, and honestly, it's hard to argue with that too much. Not every story has to be an identity story. Sometimes you just want to write Lord of the Rings, which I get. We're all do our own creative freedom. But as I often say when it comes to supporting Jewish causes, if not you, then who? And there are a few Jews who deserve our recognition, like Steven Spielberg, who we heard about tonight, Sacha Baron Cohen, other people who take up the mantle, of trying to write these authentic Jewish characters and stories. And there are absolutely some non-Jewish allies in Hollywood who truly do get it and are working to understand. And for all these people, we should be appreciative. Last group I want to mention. A lot of Jews in Hollywood, and I bet some Jews you might know in your own lives, are afraid to own their Judaism. There is fear. And I get it. There's a lot of hate and violence and generations of trauma. And then there's also the social pressure from otherwise inclusive and progressive spaces that we want to inhabit for Jews to distance themselves from these very real experiences of anti-Jewish sentiment and to very carefully avoid anything remotely resembling one of these harmful tropes that we have to answer for. And unfortunately, many Jews, especially young Jews, succumb to this pressure. We can't write a Jew that actually enjoys being Jewish unless he's a victim. We don't want to seem too powerful. Can't be honest about the hate we experience. I know my peers think it's not as bad as theirs. Can't be proud to write Jewish stories. We don't want everyone thinking Jews run Hollywood or we only look out for each other. Talk about a double standard. Imagine if you hurled that at another minority group as a negative. Latinos are always looking out for each other and are very loyal to their community. Sounds pretty great and admirable. But for Jews who are the smallest minority, who've been kicked out or killed by everybody over and over again, somehow it's a knock. It's a threat to be ashamed of and to hide from. And this fear shows up, or rather doesn't show up, on screen. We get the Jews who are running Hollywood making authentic stories about everyone but themselves. So let me leave you with this. What can we do about it? A couple things. One, we need to understand where people are coming from. We can't automatically go to, that person hates Jews, unless we're talking about Nazis. But a lot of the time, these are just well-meaning people who are poorly educated or uninformed or ignorant. We're all trying to do the best we can and do what we think is right, and sometimes they just don't know. So, I'm not telling you to agree with them, but we can't have conversations about what's going on for us if we don't understand what's going on for other people. Number two, social media is not the truth. Let me say that again. Just because you see it on social media does not mean it is true. And I'm not just talking about facts, I'm talking about ideas and sentiments. When some progressive leader we trust, say a politician or a celebrity or a news outlet with nice infographics, says something, just because they're famous or right about something else does not mean the thing that they are saying now is necessarily right. All it takes is one person at the top of the chain to share an idea based on incomplete or biased or erroneous information, and before you know it, millions of people are sharing that idea like it's a fact when it literally is not. We need to be more vigilant about what we take in and what we share. We need to check multiple sources always, and remember that Wikipedia is literally written by random people with no qualifications and no oversight. Number three, almost done. Write authentic Jewish stories and characters yourselves. Or, if you're not a writer, demand authentic Jewish stories and characters. Or call out inauthentic Jewish stories and characters. Our stories deserve to be told, and the world deserves to be exposed to different authentic kinds of Jewish, not just disassociated Hollywood Jewish kind of Jewish. And lastly, and most importantly, even if you don't do or remember anything I just said in this entire speech, remember this. You deserve to feel confident and proud of your Jewish identity the same way every human being deserves to feel confident and proud of his or her own identity. It is your right. You deserve to take up space in the circles you inhabit. You deserve to be loud, proud, and Jewish. And it is only when our yes is louder than their no that we will have the respect and then the representation that we deserve. Thank you.
Wow, incredible. Jonah's going to be distributing DNA tests at the back of the room straight after this. Jonah, thank you so much for using your platform for good. Give it up one more time for Jonah Platt. We are not done yet with the star power we're bringing to this stage. So to introduce our next guest, please welcome the incomparable director of Stand With Us here in Los Angeles, Erin Alcabez.
Our next speaker quickly rose to fame last year after her appearance on a Netflix dating show called Love is Blind. Following the show, she was named by Allgemeiner as one of the top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life. Take a look.
What's your favorite dish to make?
Oh, my favorite dish to make is like shashuka or
Oh my,
or
you
tacos.
know how to make shakshuka?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to eat ever. Oh my God, we're gonna have a shakshuka off.
I'm definitely gonna lose. Don't hold me
Oh
till I
my
get
God,
being
this
good.
is amazing. My family, they're all Israeli. When I lived in Israel, that's what we did all the time. I would host Shabbat dinners at my house there. My great-grandma lived there, and I was the first grandchild and great-grandchild ever to cook for her. The fact that I'm Jewish, that's a fundamental part of me. Not a fundamental, I'm not super religious by any means, but I am Jewish, and I'm proud to be Jewish, and I'm proud to have an Israeli family, and I love that. But if someone had a big issue with that, there's nothing I can do about that, you know?
Yeah.
Hello. Welcome to Shabbat dinner. Shabbat shalom, you guys.
We've done a couple family gatherings together.
We're gonna have some challah, have some wine. Challah, it'll be fun. Challah. Yeah, exactly.
So our families are kind of meshing together on traditions.
She said we get to challah.
It's said challah, but it's when you look at it words, it's challah.
It's what?
Like a bread thing. It is kind of chaos sometimes trying to work in all the different traditions together.
We give thanks to God for bread.
But my entire family now converted to Judaism.
Everybody. They all went to class together.
Thank you guys for joining us for Shabbat dinner. Our family's growing, and we love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Love all you guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Please welcome Alexa Lemieux.
Hello.
Hi, Alexa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for having me.
I wanted to start off by thanking you for your incredible representation of the Jewish and Israeli community. It's so rare to see positive, accurate representation in pop culture. So thank you for that. On one of your dates with Brennan, you told him that one of your non-negotiable boundaries, which we saw part of it here, is that your future partner and in-laws need to be accepting of your Jewish identity, saying that it's a fundamental part of who you are. When you went into this experiment, did you know that you wanted to be so open about your background and heritage? And if so, what was important for you to share?
So going into it, it wasn't I'm going to really work on not saying Brennan was don't say a lot. But going into it, I was not going to try and hide who I was. It's kind of just describing who you are. So that part where you saw where I'm Jewish and I'm proud to be Jewish, it's who I am. So I was just telling everything about me I was telling. But I knew that it would be an issue if I met someone. I really didn't think I was really going to meet anybody. But when I did, I was by the way, it could be an issue with your family if they're super religious, if they would have an issue with me being Jewish. Luckily, they were very, very welcoming with open arms. But no, there was no previous to going on it, do I tell them I'm Jewish or anything like that? I've always been very, very proud and off of that, after being on the show and having so many people reach out to me afterwards, it was very sad to see how many people, they're like, to see you be so proud to of who you are, like that gives me confidence to like want to be more Jewish and want to be proud of that, and that's amazing, but it's also really sad at the same time to know that people are ashamed in any way of being Jewish, because I've never experienced that. It's just, it's who I am, and I can't ever be ashamed of that, because it's such an incredible thing.
We should all feel that way. On the show, your family hosts a Shabbat dinner, discusses Jewish customs, and even your wedding was filled with beautiful Jewish traditions. Did you ever get any pushback from producers or others on the show to show less of your Judaism?
So, Brendan, this is something Brendan and I talked about, and I was like, no, we didn't have any kind of pushback, but when the show came out, things were edited, I think, a little differently, and I think that if it was someone who was Jewish sitting in the editing room, they would have done things a little bit differently. When we were describing certain Jewish traditions, I think they kind of played on the Jewish trope of like money when they talked about the ketubah. And kind of like the prenup, for instance, that's something that I never brought up. It was something that Brennan suggested that we talk about, that maybe we should get one. And my response to it was like, yeah, we should get a prenup. And then, of course, that's all they showed was me asking for a prenup, when really was just like my response to him asking for one. But then they played the ketubah, and I think that, I don't want to say it was intentional, but the way that they played it, I think, played into money, and to, like, they really played up to my dad saying, like, an affluent lifestyle, and a lot of things went around money. And when we were doing After the Altar, I brought up, are y'all going to talk more about money in this? Because it's, I don't think you guys realize that you're really playing into a Jewish trope of, you know, the whole money thing. And I hope it's not intentional, but just so you guys are aware, it's a conversation, and I've had many Jews reach out to me like, hey, did you feel uncomfortable with all of this? So I don't think they did it intentionally, but it happened.
I think one thing we all love about you is calling things out, so thank you for doing that. I also love that one of the very first moments we saw a part of it here when you met Brennan, you bonded over his love of making shakshuka. It came as quite a surprise to those in the audience to have a Christian man from Texas that viewers could see, not you, wearing a cowboy hat with seemingly no connection to Israel, mention that shakshuka was his favorite dish to make. Was this one of the moments that drew you to him, and have you tried this famous shakshuka?
So it's really weird. So the dates were, the first day you're dating everybody, it's very speed dating, and you're only in there for 7 minutes, day one. And I was asking different guys different kinds of questions, and for Brennan it was, do you like to cook? He's like, yeah, and what do you like to cook? And shakshuka, and that's, you know, what you saw. And there was so much more to our story. Like, that's all you saw was just the first 7 minutes. We bonded a lot, like, more over not just shakshuka. But it was, like, the very first thing that really made him stand out to me. And because it was weird. It's super weird if you meet someone and they're like, yeah, like, you know what shakshuka is. And I'm like, shakshuka, and he's like, yeah, it's this, you know, he started describing it. I'm like, I know what shakshuka is. But I have tried it. We did do shakshuka off, and he won. It's really embarrassing, but he won, so that's fine.
Maybe at the next conference we'll have that for breakfast. Well, you guys, Brennan is actually here with us this evening. We're going to bring him out and ask him some questions as well. Welcome, Brennan.
Oh, thank you all very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
The first question I have is for Alexa, but then I have two for you as well. So once the show aired, you became the target of a hate campaign, which even included disgusting and targeted death threats. Can you tell us about it, and was it about Israel and Zionism, or was there more there?
Whew. Yeah, there were some death threats, which were, it was crazy. I mean, you read it and your whole, like, heart drops, and it was very terrifying. And I remember reaching out to my cousin, and he's Israeli, and I was like, I can't believe I got this. And he was like, honestly, Alexa, you kind of need to prepare yourself. Like, it's coming. Like, how did you not think that was going to happen? And I was like, maybe I'm just so naive. I didn't really prepare for that, and so it was very scary. And then having major like news articles and outlets that were saying like, you know, we love Alexa, but we're afraid that she might be a Zionist, or you know, we love Alexa in spite of her being Jewish. Like that really kind of sucks, you know. Like that's who I am. It's not something that you can separate from yourself, and it's also something that I'm very proud of. And it's you know, it's just unfortunate that anyone would put that in a negative light. And also having a lot of just hateful comments that must be nice to be a rich Jewish girl. It's, you know, Kanye was right, got that a whole bunch. It's very unfortunate, and it's really weird that it came out, like the show came out when Kanye was kind of doing his whole thing, which was actually kind of incredible to have a platform and to be able to use my voice during that time. So yeah.
And we were glad to have your voice during that time as well. Okay, Brennan, ready?
Hope so.
What was it like for you to see this hate, Brennan? Coming from a Christian background, were you aware of how bad it can get for those showing their Jewish or Israeli pride?
Yeah, so to answer your question quickly, no, I didn't know. Something y'all kind of mentioned earlier was that you asked me if, like, on the show, she asked me if, you know, she said, I'm Jewish, I'm very proud, my family's Israeli, and are you okay with that? And to me, the first day, I was like, yeah, why? Like, is that an issue? Because it's something that in my life I never thought about. It never like came to attention to me as far as like seeing the hatred firsthand. And the next day I kind of thought about it that night, and the next day we met, and I talked to her, and I said, I just want to apologize. Like, I didn't mean to be disrespectful and belittle maybe what's happening and how you feel. She's like, no, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, it's different. I didn't understand it, and not until things coming out and seeing the hatred, being involved in, you know, her family and with her, and seeing all the hatred that really comes about, death threats that have happened, and it's disgusting. It hurts, and you know, the only thing I want to do is protect her and be there with her and her family, and it's very difficult to see that. And I didn't understand it because I wasn't involved in it. Even I'm knowing history and everything else, you're not, when you're not in it, or if you're not next to it, it's very difficult to understand. So you can kind of just you want to feel like you're understanding, or you stand with the people, but you don't. It's hard whenever you're disconnected from that situation.
Of course. Well, now that you have seen it and experienced it a bit, is there anything that you would want to share with other allies who are in this room? What advice would you give them in standing up to hate and supporting those who are a target of it?
Just be confident. Like, it's sad that it happens, and it sucks. Just strength. It's a lot of everyone here today is, I mean, I've never experienced that. I come from a Christian family and a Christian background. I'm not religious, but just be proud. Like, that's kind of why I fell in love with her so quickly, and why I fell in love with her family is they're unapologetically themselves, and they're not afraid to say who they are out loud in public, in auditoriums, or wherever they are, and that's something that I mean, it's magnetic. And being able to do that, it takes a lot, and I don't receive, I mean, I see it from what she gets, the hatred that she receives and her family receives, but still throughout all of things that she's experienced since the show's aired, or even before, is like, I tip my hat to, I try to be courageous and honorable, but I tip my hat to you and your family, and everything that I've seen it's really inspiring. So. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. So.
Alexa, in the room with us tonight are over 300 high school and college leaders who came here to learn about Israel and how to combat anti-Semitism. What would you tell them about pride in the face of hate and how to handle the haters?
Like Brennan was saying, it's really being proud and being confident. I know that sometimes it can be very hard and it can feel like you're very alone. But sitting in this room, like you have so many people that we're all like part of one tribe, and it's something to be very, very proud of. And I think that sometimes when it's hard, you kind of forget that and you're like, wow, like we're such a minority. How do you ever, like, how are we gonna overcome this? But we did it once, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna keep doing it. And to really, like, we're kind of really special. Like, we're part of something that's so incredible, and we're so lucky to have it. Like, when you meet someone else that's Jewish, you're like, hell yeah, you're Jewish. I'm very, very thankful to be a part of this beautiful tribe, so.
Well, Alexa, we are also very grateful to you for your pride in the face of hate and doing it so publicly that can be so challenging. And we wanted to give you a gift. Okay, so this says, in recognition of your courage and pride, Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you for taking a stand.
Thank you, guys.
Give it up for Alexa and Brennan. Thank you so much. Amazing. And our wonderful Erin. Thank you. Okay. So just before we end, is Trenton in the room? And Helena Lewis, you in the room? Because it's their birthdays, everybody. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday to you from all of us here. Okay. No, you're too tired to sing. It's fine. Next year, no, okay. There you go. Happy. Trenton and Helena. Okay. Now, that was a beautiful rendition, but to close us out tonight, the music is about to get better. This has been an incredible plenary, but our final guest of the evening is a Jewish educator, lecturer, and musician. He's a graduate of George Washington University, where he earned his BA in Judaic Studies. He was heavily involved in Jewish life and Zionist activism. As an artist, he fuses his passion for Jewish culture and history with his lived experience growing up Black and Jewish across the United States to write and produce hip-hop. I feel like you know who it's going to be. I first met him at this conference, our last in-person conference at 2020, and a couple of years later, I hired him so that he can inspire even more people with Stand With Us, and he's doing that right now, thousands of people around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Noah Shufutinsky, AKA West Side Gravy.
How are y'all doing tonight? It's been such an amazing conference so far. It's been such an amazing night. I'm so happy that I've been able to be here and share it with y'all. So my name is Noah Shufutinsky, and I'm an educator in the Stand With Us Israel office. Where are my Israelis at? I did. But my connection to Stand With Us goes back even further than that. I will say I feel like a veteran. I've been here at Stand With Us for 7 long months, and many more ahead. But even before that, I became aware of Stand With Us on social media as a student, as a high school student, moving to a new school at the time when the 2014 war in Gaza was going on. And I knew that there was a lot of misinformation out there, and Stand With Us provided me the context I needed as a young high school student to face the obstacles that we have many amazing, talented, and professional high schoolers here, the same issues that y'all have to face. Going from there, I went to university at the George Washington University, raise high. And when I was there, I was faced with, well, a lot of the same issues that are going on right now. You had issues of anti-Semitism coming from faculty there, not being dealt seriously with by the administration. There were case after case of the student association engaging in anti-Semitic activities, whether that was student association members making blatantly anti-Semitic comments and not being condemned, whether that was BDS resolutions or the refusal to adopt the IRA definition and address anti-Semitism that we were facing as students. And Stand With Us was the resource that provided us with what we needed to combat anti-Semitism and also to be proactive about telling our story. Now, my name is Noah Shufatinsky, but I also go by Westside Gravy. I'm a very passionate also about education and also about music. And I've been able to fuse both of those together. So, Marco, yalla. I'm going to perform my song Diaspora for y'all tonight. This is a song that I wrote in 2019 and released in 2019. Stand With Us was one of the first pages to repost it. Hey, put your hands up for a minute if you want. Hey, I'm a proud part of the diaspora. We ain't gon' play the victim. They get mad every time we're standing up. I'm proud of my people, what we accomplished. You're crazy if you think some rocket barrages will stop us. Look through our history and we've been through it all. Made it through slavery and the Holocaust, and still standing tall. At the Kotel Western Wall, send Shema meditating on all the populations to whom this song is dedicated. 6 Jewish families that resided in Khartoum, Iraqi brothers and sisters of other hoods. The ones who came in 56 from Israel, now we're thriving. Garim Yerushalayim, וגם בחיפה, הגולן ותל אביב, באר שבע, והנגב, ואילת by the sea. אתה יודע שלא שכחתי האתיופים שעשו את הכל, מה הם אמרו שהם לא יכולים. I'm a proud part of the diaspora. In my heart I hold Jerusalem and Africa. Kicked aside of our land and started gassing us till we put our foot down cause we had enough. Check out the flag that I'm waving, 2 blue stripes and a huge star of David. Check out the flag that I'm waving. They keep shooting rockets, but they never gon' take it. Here I'm talking about the Jews will not replace us on college campuses that been trying to erase us. And all that BDS campaigning, we dealt with worse problems and racist associations. The students all acting stupid, thinking they're making differences, picking and choosing truths and not knowing what real resistance is. Say they value social justice, are you kidding us? What the hell gives you the right to tell me who's indigenous? You don't have it, you just assume the privilege of looking at other people and telling them what their image is. They want the image to fit the twisted narrative, but those divide and conquer tactics ain't scaring this diaspora, of which I'm a proud part. I got blue and white in my veins running through my heart. And they get mad when we're surviving. The truth is, only way they like a Jew is if they're dying. So I'ma say this by the candlelight. Take a moment and remember the fallen for the sacrifice. Never again, never forget, they wanted us dead. We rose from the ashes instead. מלמדים ההיסטוריה מדור לדור. לא יהיה לנו עתיד אם לא נזכור. Wouldn't have a future if we didn't have a past. Every day we gotta take a minute and honor those who passed. Then wake up determined cause we're returning to the ways that they tried to erase that we're preserving. Scattered in the wind in diaspora conditions, still maintained a connection to our traditions. Morocco to Havana, Yemen living in Aden, Ciudad de Mexico, Buenos Aires, we're all one nation. Through all of the oppression that they threaten trying to shatter us, I'm still a proud part of the diaspora. I'm a proud part of the diaspora. In my heart I hold Jerusalem in Africa. Kicked aside of our land and started gassing us till we put our foot down cause we had enough. Check out the flag that I'm waving, 2 blue stripes and a huge star of David. Check out the flag that I'm waving. They keep shooting rockets but they never gon' take it. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to wish everyone a Shavua Tov. Toda Rabba.
Amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Did you enjoy? What an evening, huh? Amazing. Oh, thanks.